Hey guys, welcome back. All right, we're just going to cut the small talk and get right into it as usual.
One of the reflections I have about seeing Gen Zs operate in the workplace is this aversion to um, not wanting to connect with people and have real conversations and just wanting to have things so crystal clear, not wanting to waste time, not really wanting to get to know what other people need from you, not figuring out how to communicate, to connect, and just being transactional. And we've moved to this transactional method due to technology. And it just is so interesting. How are we going to help them break that and understand that the key to success is really leaning in and asking questions, connecting, creating value, but not transactional, but relational bit?
So, what do you think, my friend?
I think that is so true. And I do think that a way to break through that is to force communication in person.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think it's definitely true. And especially with certain generations like Gen Z, for example. I mean, everything for them is technology based. So, there's always an end to anything that they're doing, whether it's a comment or turning on the computer, turning it off, ending a phone call, a text message. Everything is really finite for them.
Yeah.
And I would say that this is our subject for today, the idea that relationships actually matter. And I can't think of any other field that is so relationship based, but the arena of real estate, And so with real estate, it's like, that it's very nuanced, right? You have to have those hard conversations.
Yeah.
Some of those conversations are extremely awkward. And, you can't just ghost a negotiation. You can't swipe on a house if you think about it.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of like the test of time, and it stood the test of time. So, guys, welcome to the show. I'm Alia Kizilbash, host of our Alia & Co podcast. And today, our subject matter is exactly that. And we're going to be discussing it with a wonderful, extremely talented, just the subject matter of all subject matter experts when it comes to real estate. Please introduce yourself.
Hi. Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Carrie McCormick. I am a luxury real estate broker with At Properties Christie's International here in Chicago.
Hey, wonderful. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We are going to get right into it because you have had a history in real estate. Tell us how many years you've been doing this.
So it's hard for me to say these words, but it's 25 years.
5 years.
All here in Chicago.
That's a quarter of a century.
I know. It's why it's hard to say that.
No. Well, I mean, you look beautiful. And just hearing your name and the association that you have with all of these different properties, like you look on your social media, I mean, that's a glamorous time, but I'm sure that it took you some level of effort, 100%, especially in that market that is so oversaturated with individuals that are trying to sell homes. How did you get there? Like, tell us the beginnings. How did you decide to get into real estate?
Well, the beginning is an interesting story. I really never set out to be a real estate agent. So to make a long story short, but prior to real estate, I was in marketing advertising. I worked for a company called E-Trade. Everyone knows E-Trade. And I quickly realized as a young girl, I was very rebel spirited. Not that I'm not a rule follower, but I don't like to stay within the box, right? So I think that was my entrepreneurial spirit coming out. So I stumbled upon a construction site. This is in the late 90s. And realized that is what I want to do. I want to be part of the skyline. I want to be part of the change. I want to help people find a dream home. And I got into real estate. I got into new development sales. And again, this is in the late 90s. Half of my career was with some of Chicago's most incredible developers here. And then the other half is in general brokerage.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, that's a journey, though. I mean, getting into selling new developments. But, you're doing a lot of residential at the moment. Do you do any commercial or?
Not really.
Okay. And so what are you finding? Because I think that there's a specific level of attachment when it comes to homes. That's a very emotional decision. There might have been a time, I mean, at least in my life, where I might have played matchmaker, and, you find that people, when it comes to meeting people, you do discover a level of, I would say, there are parts to you that don't really surface up in other kinds of like kinds of interactions. So one might be matchmaking, the other, traveling with people. You really learn who a person is, or if you have a problem with someone, then you really learn, but then also purchasing a home. I'm sure you've experienced over time that specifically in residential real estate, that it's such an emotional decision. So tell us about that.
It really is. And I think one of the skill sets I learned early on is listening. It's a very easy thing to do, but a lot of people forget to do it, right? Because everyone wants to be heard, right? And a home is part of your life, right? I always tell people a home is where happy things happen, sad things happen, big moments of your life happens. And you want to make sure that you're finding the perfect one, just like matchmaking, right? So the only way I can do that effectively is by listening and understanding my clients. What are their needs? What is their lifestyle? What moves them? What are the moments in their lives that are important? And how is that house, whether it's the location, the floor plan, whatever it is, how is that going to fit into their journey of life? So listening is a key attribute to have.
Absolutely. I'm curious, like the life cycle of what it looks like, where somebody might call you and say, "Hey, could you show me some houses? I'm looking for a home. I'm relocating my family, or we're thinking about looking for a home." Does it take a long time, right? Like how long does it? I mean, how many typically? I'm just because I think that we all know that real estate is commission based. So there's a lot of uncertainty for maybe even new real estate agents that are getting into it. There's uncertainty. There's the aspect of loneliness. I'm an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, you feel very lonely because you're the one that is, it's up to you to make it happen, right? So do you find that when that life cycle begins, what does it look like? What does that interaction look like? Do people get close with you? Like, do you feel like it becomes something that you're part of the family? Because if they didn't want to choose you, they wouldn't, right? So what do you think happens in that relational sort of aspect?
Well, I always tell my clients that we're partners, really. It's a team effort, right? I am their advisor. I'm a fiduciary to the client. So I do kind of like an intake with them of just understanding who they are as a person and understand what moves them, right? What is, again, the house is the house, but, is it location? Do they want to walk to work? Are they going to have kids? There's such a flurry of questions to ask them. Once I know a little bit more about the person, it's easy for me to figure out where they should live, right? Because, again, after 25 years in the city doing real estate, I know the nuances of each neighborhood. I know so much, and I can help guide them. And I think that's what makes me a great trusted advisor to them, is because I can help guide them, right? Obviously, they're the decision maker at the end of the day, but they feel like they're protected when we work together, and they feel like they're in good hands. And again, trust matters.
Yeah. And I would say there might be another layer to that I think that just because, perhaps we live in this world of black and white, where it's an interaction, it is a transaction at the end of the day. But even when people are having a conversation, only 10% of that is what you're saying. The rest of it is, sensing hesitation, or like being able to kind of read somebody's body language that maybe they're feeling uncomfortable, just sensing like just a person's, energy with maybe if they're with their spouse, and you could tell that maybe something went a little bit off, and, so how do you delve into that? Like, that seems like something that you see so many people, and it's well known that real estate agents are just very good at conversation, because you have to be with these people. Tell us about that, and maybe the evolution of, I'm sure that you've had to even through experience hone in even further, tell us about that.
Well, it is interesting because I think if you think of salespeople, we like to talk, right? And actually I'm doing this, I'm talking with my hands now, but I'm kind of the opposite of that. I will say that when I'm with my clients, whether it's a buyer or a seller, I am a very good listener. I know I said that, but I really am. And I think that that's key, is not to talk too much, right? Obviously talk when I have something to add or some information. But again, sitting back and listening and hearing what they have to say, watching, observing, like you said, I can read people's body language very well. I can see when their eyes light up on something, when they're scared. But also, I think one value that I bring to my clients is my network that's around me. So, for example, if I have a client that wants to build or they want to remodel or they're scared of house maintenance in general, let's just say, I have every person in my little black book that can help them with that. And again, I think they feel in good hands. Like they know that I'm going to take care of them. They know that I am definitely not a transactional broker. I am definitely a relationship broker. I think that also comes from 25 years of experience. So making someone feel safe, secure in the transaction, and knowing that they have somebody there that's watching them, again, using the word fiduciary, to make sure that they're making the right investment, they feel good about it.
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. And there's so many different aspects when it comes to that. So, now, though, I feel like our world is also shifting a lot. And, being in this market for 25 years, I'm sure that you have noticed a lot of changes in real estate. Just the way that the sale is, the way that a potential buyer might be, the relationship of the seller, what does that look like? People that maybe come in and they're just kind of like, oh, some people just tour homes just for the fun of it,
Yeah.
And it's just like, so what have you seen in the time that you started all the way to now? Where do you find that the uptick in changes began or not? I could just assume that there have certainly been changes. So tell us about that timeline. What does that roadmap look like?
Yeah.
All the different changes. Do you think it happened because of technology? Where are we at with that?
Yeah, there's actually been a ton of changes, right, that have happened. And just thinking back to, it's kind of fun to think back to like '08 when the market crashed, right? So we had a market crash from '08 to approximately 2012. That really shifted a lot of people's lives for the good and for the bad. So really, for me, that was a time to pivot as well, just of how am I going to work with my clients during this unfortunate time of the crash market. So we had that happen. And now I have to think back to all the timeline. Obviously, COVID was another big shift in the real estate industry, right? So here in Chicago, our market went down, other places went up. That definitely was an emotional ride for a lot of people here.
Tell us more about that. Why emotional?
Well, I think people had a lot of fear, right? And fear drives decisions or can suspend their decisions. So I watched people through COVID, whether they were losing loved ones, whether they were scared of obviously getting sick, scared of the market because the market went down, then the market went up, so we saw a lot of shifts in that. People wanted to leave the city. People wanted to go to the suburbs. So again, watching people's decision-making was very interesting. And I think a lot of decisions that were made during the market then were really silly decisions.
Oh, why? Why? Yeah.
Well, there was this flee out of the city, right? And people fled to the suburbs or they fled out of state. In the suburbs, people were buying homes $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 over the asking price of the home. It was bananas. It was completely bananas. And it really was driven out of this, again, fear of getting out of the city, or my friends did it. They moved. I got to do it too. And to me, it was just a silly financial decision to make because now as the market has sort of reset, they spent, we'll just say $100,000 over on a house. And now they're looking at it saying, oh no, I way overpaid for that house. Or again, I've seen some people pack up and move to Florida and now I see them coming back, but they overspent in Florida and now they can't sell their Florida house and now they're coming back. So there was a lot of decisions made during COVID that probably were not the best financial decisions at the time.
Right. I would say that time, though, when they announced standard in place, people couldn't even leave their homes. Just a scary, scary time where in some ways you thought that, is the world done? Like, what are we?
I know.
It's like, what's happening right now? And in some ways it's like when you're put to kind of your feet are put to the fire, you're like, okay, dumb decision, whatever that decision is, I think it was hard for people to have faith in any outcome at that point. And I think perhaps is it that they were trying to be safe, but then also the idea of all of like the crime.
Yeah.
And just being able to even get into the city at certain times was so difficult. So you see that. And as a professional, like day one for you, I'd love to hear your vantage point when it comes to that. Day one, when you found out, okay, we can't show homes.
Right.
What did you do?
Well, I do remember that actually. I remember being in my dining room, as a matter of fact, and we were on a Zoom call with agents from around the US, and because obviously that was a global issue that was happening. And it was interesting listening to some of the agents were like, I'm quitting, we're done, like I don't have a job anymore. And I'm really good at pivoting.
Yeah.
When markets shift or things change, there's always, you can embrace, the moment, and you can also, there's an opportunity to change things, right? So I remember sitting there thinking, this is going to be my best year ever, and it took a few days to kind of digest what was happening. And obviously it was a tremendously sad time in the world, right? When all of that was announced. But there's the upside to that was people really had a new outlook of home. What does home look like? Because we were stuck in it, right? We were, we had to be in our homes. We couldn't go out and do anything. And I think family became more important to people. Again, their home situation became more important to them. So to me, that was a moment of saying, your house does matter, right? What I do matters to people. And again, that's putting you into a home where your family and connections are. So I really embraced and took that to the next level of, you need to find where your home is and your family is important to you. Let's find the right place for you. And people did. They scattered wherever they went, whether they left Chicago, stayed in Chicago, upsized, downsized, whatever it was. I was there to help them through that time, but also protect their investment, because there was plenty of times where my clients were like, I want this house, I'll pay $500,000 over asking. And again, being an advisor, I had to tell them, listen, you're always the decision maker. But as a professional, as a fiduciary to you, just know you are overspending for this house. Plan to be in it for at least 10 years. Because if you're going to sell it in 3 to 5, you're never getting your money out. And they appreciated that. Of course, we won the house. They're still there, thank goodness. But it's giving also advice to my clients.
Yeah. And probably also don't even think you're going to get any new patio furniture. Because at that point,
it took like 6 months to get new patio furniture during that time.
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, again, that time just of so much uncertainty, and hearing that the pivot, right? But also hearing from you is knowing that it's going to be the best year ever. That takes a certain kind of self-talk, which I believe has a direct effect on you as an entrepreneur. So let's peel back some of the layers of the onion here. Like, tell me about that. Like, are you someone who, like, people just get in their head and they get in their feelings, and sometimes it's hard for them to step outside and see the big picture. Tell me about you. How does your mind work when it comes to things like that?
Never been in the box. That's why I got out of corporate America. And again, just being an entrepreneur, I think we wake up with this positive, attitude every day. I just do. I'm obsessive with my job. I love what I do. And again, I'm kind of borderline obsessed with my job. And I think that just drives me every day. And if there's a hurdle, to me, it's a challenge. And I like to overcome the challenge. I feel like every day there's nothing I can't accomplish. And I will say, through the years, the one thing that I learned to my success of that is being kind to people. And I know that may sound silly, but I think as human beings, just kind of going back to the video that you played at the beginning, we are entering into a little bit more transactional world, a very data-heavy world of you can see and find everything online, but there is still human connection. And I think as human beings, we really do want that, even though we're stuck on our phone screens every day and we are swiping through things left and right and we want things immediate. I think when you meet a professional that can give you clarity on the data and really kind of that human connection and really looking out for you, that creates more of a relationship than that transaction. And I think that's where too, after all of these years, when you have that human connection, you're kind to someone, you can understand them, you can listen to them and provide a result that works for them, it's invaluable.
Right. And especially in a time where perhaps they are not the most clear, like
Yeah.
emotions are heavy and hoping that, they'll accept the offer or, it's
Right.
just nervousness and it's a big purchase. It could be like a first time purchase for somebody that is not, like it's a big deal. So finding that clarity, I think, is definitely important. I want to circle back into COVID though, because I think that is something that a lot of people wondered about. And specifically when it comes to clarity. Okay, so you do this pivot, right? You're like, all right, this is more important than ever, because people are, the social dynamic has shifted, right? The idea of family and togetherness and what's important at the end of the day is your loved ones. People were losing loved ones, and people were trying to keep their loved ones healthy. I mean, my husband's in the medical field, so for him to go in there, it would be 7 days on, 7 days off. He wouldn't go they were trying to minimize the amount of people. I mean, after a week, I'm like, when are you going back to the
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm cooking something. It's like, you've eaten this before
Right.
1,000 times, but now you want to tell me how to make it? Like, it's just, so, but all jokes aside, there is that aspect of it. It's becomes very family centric. If you have to relocate, if you have to, as somebody who needs to, you couldn't show a home. You couldn't be within 6 feet.
Right.
You couldn't be inside with people. So how did you navigate that?
Well, we had rules in place, which was interesting. We did so many video tours and FaceTime tours, and people bought homes off of video. They really did.
Wow.
Yeah, but we did have protocols. We had to be in masks and we had to stand 6 feet away. We were so busy, and we just, between, like I said, the video and being masked up and, head to toe of everything, we did it.
Yeah. So who was the mandating force? I think just for anybody who is not in real estate, when these decisions happen, who is helping you decide or kind of just letting you know what the logistics are on a whim? It's constantly changing. There's so much iteration. So what is the authority for real estate agents to understand what is the right thing to do legally, and like what the logistics can be.
Right. So, it was mandated by the Chicago Association of Realtors. So we do have our umbrella that we follow our rules. And every state's different, right? In Florida, they didn't have anything, because they're obviously outside all the time. And I think that's why a lot of people left to Florida. But here, we did have rules and protocols put in place by the Chicago Association of Realtors and by our company. And we were essential workers. Remember, there was doctors and, certain professions that were, they were essential, and it was interesting. We were dubbed as an essential worker, so we had to work, we were out there. But, obviously my job was to protect myself health-wise because we were in rooms with other people and to protect the clients. And I do think for the most part, everyone complied very well with that. And we did a great job of, again, keeping everyone safe. And there were times that, they wouldn't let us into homes unless we were masked, which is, again, following the rules and protocol. And we all did.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just such an interesting concept because, so I have, my college kid who needed to rent a home. And she went on some obscure apartments website. I don't even know if any of the listings were real, but she saw this one and she's just like, oh, that's a pretty picture. I'll just sign the lease right now. And I'm like, no, like, that's not the way that works. And so in my mind, obviously you learn very quickly that you need to see the home, right? And so it's intriguing that during that time, FaceTime, Zoom, et cetera, to see the house. First of all, you had to be at a place where you really needed to buy a home,
Right.
In order to do that. What do you think the biggest fear with that was? Did you feel like they understood the depth of the home? Are these like large scale purchases or, because people, they need to feel like they love the home. They need to see the layout. So tell me about that.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. I think people were making rash decisions. And I do think, though, too, having a seasoned broker during that time who could really advise you was really important. And I think those who had the experience and the credibility did thrive during that because, again, with at the time, when it was 22 years of experience, they felt comfortable, that me walking into a home, and also I'm pretty good with my phone and camera and FaceTime, I know what to do. And, just spending a little bit more time walking them through the home over FaceTime. But people had a lot of trust during that time. They bought homes off of a video. It really was a thing, and again, just me being a relationship person, I would never want to put someone into a property that I didn't feel was the right fit, just for the transaction. So, I'm lucky to say that everyone that I placed in homes during COVID they're doing fine. They love their home. But I did take it personally. It's, would I buy this home? Would I really advise to buy this home? So, again, being a trusted advisor during that time was important.
Right. And actually, it kind of is parallel to the point of kind of this example. The idea of technology, and you have these dating apps, et cetera, and, somebody might put up a listing or what, not a listing, but like their profile,
Right,
where it might be kind of augmented by filters and AI, et cetera. And in some ways, like society as a whole, anybody that's going onto the dating app is going to look at that person and maybe now not feel so deceived when they show up and they see that person does not actually even look like the catfish. Can you get catfished off of a home, right? Like,
absolutely.
So like, and that's interesting. So do you find, but at the same time, to exactly what you were saying, is that level of trust that's a waste of your time in some ways, because where a fake listing or a fake image is up there where it kind of deceives you, then you have to go through this, like
Right.
they show up, they're not going to like it anyway, you
Right.
know? Do you see that the way that consumers are dealing with the FOMO aspect of listings, where it's like, oh, something better is going to come. Oh, there's so much information. It's like infinite.
Yes.
It just keeps going. How do you handle that?
So in our industry, we do have rules now. So, for example, if I put a picture up, there's a box that I have to check if it's virtually staged, digitally enhanced, just so that their consumer is getting the right information. But again, I think that goes back to my profession and being a professional, right? They lean on me for the data because, again, it's hard to look at everything that's out there. You can go to 20 different websites and get 20 different opinions. You can go to 20 different websites and get 20 different pictures. You just don't know what the truth is anymore out there. And my job is to know the market, study the market, and advise my clients. And that's why there's times that I will go preview a home. I don't want to waste my clients' time. Their time is valuable. I'll go preview a home. If something doesn't look right online, or, the verbiage is off a little bit or the photos are off a little bit, I'll do a little bit of the digging before I bring my client in. So yes, there's so much out there, and I love AI. I'm embracing AI. I think it's the best thing that could happen to us, but we also have to be careful with it, right? Because you can use it in such a great way and a great tool. And then there's those who will use it in not such a great way.
Right. Absolutely. And that's the thing is also, just the different factors of not just the photography, the images. I'm glad that there's transparency around that, because we need to know. I was telling, Finney before, is that basically, like, what is it? There's some video that I watched about this lesser developed country that was like a third world country. And then there was like an AI generated image of cleaning the trash off the streets, making the infrastructure, paving the roads, painting the buildings. Look like Europe. I'm like, okay. But that's a lot. Staging,
Yes.
adding furniture, because I'm sure when somebody walks into I'm one of those non-creative people that is not good with interior design. I'm just not. Like, I'd rather hire someone to help me do that. And so I don't see the vision of something when I walk into. So staging actually works really well for me, because I can like paint a picture of what the house will look like. So I think that there's a lot of different aspects to that. But then you get into other territories where, okay, let's put the images to the side. You have like a Zestimate. Right. The Zestimate said, blah, blah, blah. This is what my offer is going to be. How do you even handle that? Like,
Well, Zestimate's not even a real word.
yes.
Yeah, that's what I started.
There you go, guys. That's a mic drop moment.
Yeah. Not even a real word out there, So again, that's where all the data comes in. And my job is to provide clarity in that. Again, it's just like Think of a doctor. I am nowhere near, I know your husband's a doctor, nowhere near a doctor at all. But, you can go online if you have a rash, right? You go online and you say, I've got a red rash on my hand. You're going to get so much information. And that's why actually when something happens, I never Google it, because you're going to get like a million things. You need to go see a doctor. You need to, the doctor to look at the rash. You need a professional. Same with homes. You can go online. Yes, you get a lot of data. You get a lot of information, but you need someone that's going to take that and give you the correct assessment or advice.
Absolutely. And I think it's also because there are so many different sources. So, definitely it's what's on MLS is one thing.
Right.
But also sometimes things aren't updated fast enough, or, there might be some other scenarios, and there's so many different platforms now that people are using that might be a little bit more user-friendly or not, that some of them are not updated as fast if there's just like kind of like a consumer that's like looking up on Redfin that maybe, that house is, and it's not that it was sold, like, or something. So there's so many different factors. So, walk us through basically like what are the biggest myths that you hear nowadays? Like what are kind of like buzz phrases that you hear, a buyer come in, or a seller for that even matter, come in and say, well, I heard XYZ. Like what are certain things that perhaps you can dispel in terms of like things that you hear in real estate where, well, this costs this much here, so my offer is going to be X. Like, are there certain things that you hear all the time?
Yeah. I mean, it's on both sides, buyers and sellers, because they're looking at the market data. Everyone wants a good deal. Right. I mean, at the end of the day, right? Or, get a fair price on something. So yes, I always say every home has a story. It really does. So whether, home X was sold with furniture or the pictures were not accurate and they were, virtually staged, you see it sell for X. Again, a consumer just looking at a computer screen, they don't know the ins and outs of that deal. Again, was that home, went over asking price, but it was sold with all the furniture inside. It was sold under asking price, maybe because a pipe broke in the basement. They didn't show the picture of it or didn't tell the story, but the pipe broke and the basement was gutted and it's not livable down there. There's all of these nuances to these deals that consumers just don't know. And yes, they go in and they pick the comps or the things that they want that are going to justify their price. But again, having the market knowledge and knowing what's happening really in the market is invaluable.
So for some first time and even second, third time home buyers, what is kind of like the rule of making an offer to some degree? Is it ridiculous to go way below just like where it's like, well, just tell them this much and you're like, that's never going to happen. Like, do you have to listen to them, or is it kind of, do they like throw it away? Like is it just not serious? Or like, I mean, I'm sure you've had experiences with people that come in and make ridiculous offers for ridiculous things, what does that look like and how do you talk through that? And where do you bring that credibility, that aspect of clarity in for them?
Right. Well, my clients are always the boss, right? So I do what they want. But again, my job is to provide information in the data of what I think. So yes, we'll just use a buyer as an example. I had one this morning, as a matter of fact. It's a property listed at $2.5 million. He wanted to make an offer at 1.7, which is really low, right? So we talked through it and I gave him my advice of where I would come in with the offer. And he said, understood, Carrie, but this is what I still want to do, right? So again, him being the boss on it, he understands the market, because I just shared it with him and I gave him my valuation of this, but I did present the offer. And again, this is where human communication is important. I could have just taken that offer, emailed it to the other side and left it there, but rather picking up the phone, having a conversation with the selling broker and explaining our position and why we're doing this leads to a better transaction, right? Because again, it's negotiating, but it's also that human connection. It's talking with somebody versus, and I do get people that will just send me offers with no context, just literally the DocuSign forwarded to me. No phone call, no email, no nothing. There's no context to it. So it's hard to negotiate a good deal with someone when you don't have communication. But I am seeing that happen more and more especially, I was going to say this year, but we're just the beginning of this year, especially in 2025, all transactional
Why so?
generation.
Yeah.
So I think, the deals don't get done, I don't think, in a great way unless you start communicating with them.
But that's the thing is though. So is that something that you're noticing over time? Like, in 25 years of now, perhaps maybe, I was watching something where they were talking about social decline after the 1950s, where when the TV was invented, there was, people had an average of 5 friends and, then the average of the amount of friends that they had decreased, and then so on with all the different advents of the, I don't know what came first, telephone or TV? I don't remember, but TV's telephone, right?
I don't know.
I think, I think it was telephone.
I'm going to say telephone.
Yeah, I think telephone. I could see that in black and white somewhere.
Yeah, I think so.
But either way, I mean, these things, just with the mobile devices and, now you have like the iPads and now we're just working and playing on our phones and just the way that we communicate, like everything is shifted. So is it specifically this year that you saw like an uptick in like, all right, I've never met you, offer?
No, I think it came out of COVID, honestly, because, I think we got used to not having human interaction because we were told not to, right? Stay 6 feet away, don't go here, don't do this. And I think over a couple of years, we all just kind of retreated to some degree, right? And we got used to not talking face to face with people, right? So I think that was a catalyst of it. And when COVID lifted, I think people had a choice. Either you could go back to being a human or you can stay in that frame of mind. And it was easier, I will say, right? Because when I was forced to not be in front of someone and I could just Zoom in a meeting versus go somewhere, I was super productive. I got a lot done. It was super easy. I hated it, and that just wasn't who I was. But I do think some people were like, oh, this is easy, just like going back to the office. Some people are like, I work from home. I don't want to go back to the office, So I think that came out of COVID and some people just never, they still do that. They still call things in. They still want to Zoom. I fly to places to meet my clients. I want to see their face and interact with them face to face.
Yeah, no, 100%, which is kind of, I mean, I think that, yes, obviously we all experienced COVID, definitely lots of efficiencies with being able to have in-person, like the Zoom meetings, et cetera. But like a house has a lot involved.
Yes.
And that's a huge purchase. So I am very surprised to hear that. So do you think, so specifically after COVID, in the years that you've been in real estate, you're finding that it is getting a little bit more transactional, but do you find that in those purchases, there's a little bit more kind of like confusion or like, the context isn't there? Are there more questions? Is it less efficient of a purchase in that sense? Are they finding out when they go into the house that there's certain things that they maybe didn't expect?
No, I think that, setting it up, at least the way that I, operate, I think setting it up properly for the clients is very important, of educating them ahead of time too, and setting expectations on all of the transaction and data, and it's not coming from ChatGPT data. It's really coming from my personal experience and pulling information and, again, having that conversation with them. So I am really trying to take away the transactional part of home buying and home selling and really making it more like a consultant advisory, one-on-one with my clients, because I don't have a big team. I'm never going to have a big team where I lose control over it. I always say, when you hire me, you get me, and you get all of my experience. You get, my thought process, everything that I have to offer one-on-one.
Mm-hmm. And I love that because at least from what I'm hearing, is that despite the fact that there are some changes when it comes to technology and the way, and even after COVID, where we're becoming a little bit more recluse and transactional to that degree, that there's still the human element that is super important because you have been in the house. And, I can even see that on a Zoom call, what I would expect from you, because you're like, you're somebody that you can tell it's like, the red carpet service. Like I can just see that, where you would be like, well, it is kind of small in here. Like I could hear you say that. And then that still takes a certain level of human interaction. So you can't really do away with it if you think about it.
You can't.
Yeah. So is that like one of the major things that you've seen over time?
I think so. I definitely think so.
So how about in the aspect of now for usage on a professional level? How have you seen, like I'm sure that AI and, at least softwares that come in have definitely helped in terms of like automation within
Yes.
certain like compliance related or closings, et cetera. So we're from the beginning to now where we are here. Like, have you ever seen those videos of 1950s, 60s, 70s, and it's just like
Yeah.
walk us through that. What does that look like?
From an AI standpoint,
Just through technology and how it's made your job easier.
yeah, I mean, definitely an automation of just different, I call it like back of the house stuff, like operational type stuff, scouring things, but, really that data of understanding the numbers in our market. I still like, it's been kind of fun. Like I put something into ChatGPT, like a report, and I had it analyze the report for me. It came back like at 90% correct, so which to me tells me it's not there. Again, I think with real estate, there's so many nuances to a home and to the data that's out there. I hope I'm not wrong with this, but you solely can't rely on AI and that technology. Are there things that it made a little bit more clear to me? Absolutely. Did it take the data and separate it for me? Absolutely. There were so many great things about it, but really understanding the data and then taking that information and providing it to a client in a clear way, that is definitely human behavior. Yeah. So I think we just have to be careful with the technology that's out there and what we are given, because I've been on the receiving end. It was funny. I asked someone for a marketing plan for something that I was doing. It literally was a copy and paste of ChatGPT. And, it was like, how lazy could this person be? They're trying to sell their product to me. And they literally like put my name in there, what I was looking for. It was like my conversation.
Yeah, you can tell.
You could totally tell.
Yeah.
And to me as a consumer, it's a total turnoff, right? I don't want an AI generated marketing plan or whatever it was that they gave to me, And so, people have to understand that you have to still have the human aspect to it.
100%.
Yeah.
But I also think that everybody's level of adoption when it comes to those things, like, is very different, right?
True.
Some are recognizing certain patterns in ChatGPT that others haven't. So I taught this class, like a AI literacy class, for just, the gap is the experts they keep experting, but then there are real people that don't know how to use it. So this individual wrote this book through that ChatGPT wrote, copyrighted it because they did it a while ago where the rules were pretty lax on it. The rules now are definitely not that way, but then was asking me, because it was a historical piece. I've been checking it in ChatGPT, and ChatGPT says that all of these historical facts are correct. So I told her, I said, well, now go to another AI agent and put that information there. And there were so many wrong things. So you have to also use AI to check AI. And you can't just put into ChatGPT, but I think that everyone's level of adoption is also maybe that person, if they had known, because maybe they're a new person that that's like a bells and whistle thing. The first time you see it, you're like, well, this is so much that I see. I know exactly. But people can, and so now you're at the level of being able to recognize it. It's almost offensive. It's like, really?
Right.
You would give me this? So definitely people they prize and they find authenticity extremely important. And the trend that I'm seeing, at least with hearing your story and listening to just real estate in general, you need to be authentic. So much so, because especially in this world today. So are you finding that even despite all of these different changes from a professional level, but then also from a consumer level, with all the advents of change, you are finding a very human level that you need to continuously have?
And it always will be.
Yeah.
It will always be.
100%. Now, how about like other real estate agents? If there are new people that are coming into the space that are trying to sell, do you find that maybe working with maybe newbies that are trying to make it? Like, I'd love to hear your advice to them on maybe things that you're noticing about the way that real estate, if they got their license and immediately they'd come in, what are the no-nos and what's happening
Yeah.
and how to be successful when it comes to that.
It is interesting because when the newbies, which I like your terminology, when the newbies come in, they want the quick answer. How do you do this? How do you sell $100 million a year? How do you sell a $10 million house? It's how do I do it? And I start with, kind of my journey but they're like, no. But what do I need to do today? I'm like, it's not like a quick, you don't just sell a $10 million house today. Like they just want that quick response. They want to know what's going to happen right now. So I talked to them a little bit about patience, because I think having patience in anything that you do is very important. Again, I talked to them about listening and I talked to them about kindness. So I have those three of my top priorities: patience, listening, and kindness. And they don't like that. They're like, well, tell me, what software do I need to buy? What do I need to do? What do I need to do this? And there is no quick way to be successful, I don't think, personally. I think it's a journey. And, what I've learned today versus what I knew 10 years ago is very different, and it all compounded on each other. I've had a lot of mistakes in my career. I've done a lot of things wrong, and I've learned from them, right? And it's really also a lot about hard work in any profession that you're in.
Yeah.
You have to study your profession. You have to work hard, but again, I think every human being is capable of that. You can study, you can work hard, you can grind, you can make your calls. But the core things that make, I think, some people more successful than the others is that kindness, that human interaction, the listening, because everyone wants to be heard. And I forgot what my third one was. Oh, patience.
Patience, yeah. Super important.
And I always say, hurry up, I need some patience. Because I have zero patience. If anyone that works with me or knows me very well knows I do not have patience. But I don't have patience in the term of, if I set my mind to do something, it's not going to be done tomorrow. It's going to be done today. And that's where I don't have patience, is if there's an idea, I execute. If there's something that needs to be done, it's done. That's it.
Don't think about it for 2 years.
I do not think about anything for 2 minutes. I'm a very quick decision maker, and that's done also through experience, right? Because when you have done things incorrectly, you learn from them and you get that experience, and I know how to navigate the road ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, like these individuals that are kind of like proteges or people that you're teaching, or new individuals, newbies that come in, they come from this kind of the highlight reel of life, right? The social media aspect. And I know in terms of your social media following, there must be certain things that people see. It's the optics of it. It's the picture that you paint. But with you, there's a track record as well, right? Where are you seeing that there's maybe kind of like a convergence of authenticity and trust? Because to gain a following like that, you need to trust that person. There is a connection that those individuals that are subscribing, they have a connection, but at the same time, there is kind of like this very visual aspect of that. Walk us through that. How did, just technology in general. I mean, social media is definitely very much a part of it. How did you realize that was something that you needed to jump into?
Yeah.
And what have you learned kind of like with that experience of what people want to see, and, how does that work?
Oh, I have a good answer to this one, because it was
all of your answers are good.
Quite the journey, though. But I do remember this. I think it was 2017 or 2018-ish. And, you always look to someone else who's successful and you want to see what they're doing, how they're doing it. And, I never wanted to copy anyone, because I think being authentic is super important. But I was watching what others were doing, and I realized, if Agent A is very successful and she was doing this, I'm going to go do that, in my own way, but I'm going to go do that. And then it didn't work for me. And then I would try something else and it didn't work for me. And then I remember sitting back thinking, well, who am I and what do I bring? Let's be a little more authentic to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I started changing my social media to be authentic to who I am. I said what I wanted to say. I wore what I wanted to wear. I did what I wanted to do. And that was truly me. That wasn't anyone else. That was solely me. And once I really embraced the be authentic to your own brand or your own self, that's when it took off. And I think that's when people felt They knew who I was because I wasn't trying to be somebody else. I wasn't pretending to be something that I wasn't. I wasn't going to other people's listings and filming their homes. I was doing and documenting my listings, my work, my thoughts, who I am. And I think that's what invited everyone into who is Carrie. They got to know who I am. Some liked it. Some people didn't, which is fine. But I think those who embraced it and me and understood, and then who I was on camera or on my social, and when they met me and realized, actually, some people would come to me and say, which is really bad to say, but they're like, "You're so nice," and I'm like, "Well, of course, but I didn't think like you'd be this nice," and I'm like, "But that's who I am. Like, I am a nice person." So I think too, it was, again, being on social and being authentic was important. And then showing up in real life as that person kind of connected it for a lot of people of like, she's nice on camera and she's nice in person. So I think that's being authentic really helped grow my social.
Yeah. And I would say also made it easy, because you don't have to pretend to be someone else.
That's a lot of work.
It is so much work to follow a pattern that is not yours. So authenticity certainly matters. And it's really it's so beautiful to hear that, because there is that, oh, you're so nice. Because sometimes you meet influencers or you meet people. I don't know if there's times where you meet somebody that is Insta famous or whatnot, and they're completely, it's always the imagery of who you are. When you meet them in reality, they're not that person at all.
Right.
So maybe, I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it, but also the expectation that perhaps maybe people believe they also know that it's not something that is authentic. Typically, at least social media, realizing that that's the highlight reel, that's the image that you're painting. But it's also something that's very much so accepted in this generation.
Absolutely.
But I think that the trend is changing now, where we're actually headed towards more messy, more authentic, because now all these AI fakes are flooding the system that are perfect,
right?
That people are now craving that authenticity. So I want to shift, and before we go, I want to ask, especially for people, I've learned a lot from this conversation, definitely a lot about real estate and important factors that I think that people that are not in the space also need to know about, kind of like the insides of how you kind of conduct yourself professionally. That's super important. But I think that the underlying issue here is authenticity. So not just on a professional level, what advice can you give people, especially in this day and age where there's so much coming at us? How do you stay authentic? And a very, I would say just something that perhaps maybe is the mantra that is in your mind when it comes, because you're someone that I see that has stood the test of time when it comes to innovation and technology. You still find that the human aspect exists. What advice would you give to maybe a young girl who's kind of confused about who she is?
Yeah, there's a lot. There is the golden rule.
Mm-hmm.
Treat others as you want to be treated, right? I remember growing up with that. And I always thought it was just a saying. It was just words. People would say that. And I don't know if I've heard that a lot lately, but I think that is true. And when you treat others with respect and care and kindness, I think that's important, and always just do the right thing, and that's really just how I've conducted my business. I don't want to sell something to someone that is, again, just a transaction, just a number. I really take pride in what I do and the results that I produce. I always tell my clients too, if 10 years down the road, if you call me and you need something from me, I'm going to be there. I want to have that relationship with people. And I think because when people meet me, they feel that trust and that compassion and, all the right things. That's who I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. So trust, compassion, your three ones were patience, kindness, and
listening.
I love that. Well, Carrie McCormick, so amazing to have you on. Learned so much from this conversation. And I think it will be beneficial to hear, because especially in this society now, we're just getting inundated by so much.
Right.
So much, and I think that hearing this conversation will be definitely helpful to a lot of people out there. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.